Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you all can hear me, just write a little something in the chat box or the question box to let us know that you can hear us. Thank you all so much. We're really excited that you all are participating in press events at Fall Meeting. We really want to thank you for taking the time and effort to do this with us, and we think it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're so glad that you're helping us out. So I'm Lauren LaPuma. I work in the AGU Public Information Office. We're the Science Press Office, and we run the whole press operation at the Fall Meeting. And joining me today are my colleagues Nancy Bompey and Liza Lester, also from the Public Information Office. So what we're going to go over today, we're first just going to give you a little brief intro to the whole press operation at Fall Meeting, and then I'm going to go into how you should prepare a presentation for the press and what to expect ahead of time. And then Nancy, I'm turning it over to Nancy, and Nancy's going to talk about what to expect on the day of the press conference and some logistics. And she's going to talk about what happens next after the press conference is over. And then we're going to give you some more information, talk about next steps, and then open it up for questions. So first, just to give you an overview of press at Fall Meeting, our meeting we run one of the largest and most well-respected press operations in all of science meetings. We regularly get more than 300 members of the media attending. And this year, because we're in Washington, D.C., we are expecting a record number of press registrants, probably up to 400. It's going to be everyone from reporters, science bloggers, authors and filmmakers, photojournalists, video journalists, and even journalism students and educators come as well as fellow press officers from research institutions, and many of your own press officers will be attending as well. So everyone, all the major news outlets come to our meeting, everyone from the Washington Post and New York Times to the BBC, Associated Press, NPR, ABC. So pretty much any news outlet you can think of, they will most likely be there. And so to help reporters facilitate reporters' coverage of the meeting, we put on 3 types of press events. And these are the events that you all will be a part of. The main type of event we do is a press conference. This is the majority of events that we do. And press conferences are all about sharing new research results with the press who are attending. It's really to break news. The other kind, the second kind is workshops, and workshops are more designed to provide reporters with background information about an upcoming mission or project, something that may be coming up in the next 6 months or year or so, to prepare them to cover that when it happens. And the third type of event we do is a media availability. And this is where prominent scientists or other people in earth and space sciences, such as agency heads, are available to do just a question and answer session rather than to present new information. So I'm going to go over how to prepare a presentation for the press, and this will mostly pertain to people participating in press conferences and workshops. But for those in media availabilities, it's good to know as well, just to keep it in mind. So first, I'm just going to kind of go over the difference between how a news story or a news presentation is different than a scientific presentation. So for a scientific presentation or even for a research paper, you have this structure where you start off with your introduction, you talk about previous research and what's already known about this topic or area of research. Then you go into your methods, and then finally your results, your discussion conclusions, and what you found. But the way reporters write reports science is very different. News stories are structured differently. They are structured with the results and the discussion and implications at the top. And then it goes into the implications, and then finally the details and methods of the research. And there's 2 reasons why news stories are structured this way. There's an old school reason and a new school reason. The old school reason is that back in the days of just print news, if a story was too long and it wouldn't fit on a page, an editor would literally take a pair of scissors and cut off the bottom of your story. So you had to really get the most important stuff as high up in the story as possible. So if you do this with a research paper and presentation, you can see you would cut off the ends, the most important part, the results, the discussion, and the implications and conclusions. But if you write it as a news story with all of that up front, and you just lose the details, it's not such a big deal. The second reason why news stories are structured this way is because people have short attention spans and they need to know the big impacts first. So the purpose of a news story is that the reader should know the outcome in the very beginning, either in the headline, the lead, the first couple paragraphs. That's why things are structured this way. And I give all of you this information so that you can understand kind of what is what are the important points to deliver to reporters. You really want to focus on your results and their implications, and you don't want to get too bogged down in the methods. The other thing to remember is that, and Nancy will talk about this a little bit later on, about how our press conferences are structured. You each will be giving a 5 to 7 minute presentation to the press. That's a very short period of time. So you have to cover only the main major points in that short period of time so that they can take that away. And they will then ask for more details later on if they would like it. So when you're going about creating a presentation for the press, so keep that in mind. And so like I said, your presentation is going to be roughly 5 to 7 minutes long. So you want approximately 1 slide per minute of speaking time. So it's not much. You really want to use less text and more visuals. You only have a couple of minutes to convey the high points of your research to reporters. So you really have to keep it on a level that's accessible. A good rule of thumb for us is to think of it as keeping it to the level of a high schooler. You want to really make things more visually accessible because people process visual information more quickly than they can process something that's written. Don't get too bogged down in the methods. Like I said, reporters will ask for more detail as they need it or as they want it. And a good rule of thumb is in the final slide, kind of summarize your main messages from your presentation and include your contact information. And remember that everything that you include in a presentation for the press must be shareable, which means you can't use anything that's copyrighted. And I'll talk about that in more detail a little bit later. So going into a little more detail here, what should the content of your presentation cover? Here's the 4 kind of main points that your presentation should hit. First is the news, which is your research result, which is what did you find? And then the impact, why does that matter? So, what is the result? What is the implication? What is the conclusion? Then you want to provide some context as well. So what is new in your research or what you're presenting here compared to what is already known about this topic or about this field or this mission? And then if there's a human dimension to your story, include that as well. So does your result or does its implication, does it affect people in some way? Does someone benefit? Does someone suffer? How are people affected? So then the next thing you want to think about, and you don't necessarily have to include this in your presentation, but it's something you should be prepared for during the question and answer session, is what is your take-home message? So if you were to take all of those parts, the news, the impact, the context, and boil it all down into 1 sentence or 2 sentences, and what does this mean? So, what is the real takeaway from all this? Why should we care? So here's a couple of examples of take-home messages that scientists have given in past press conferences or press releases that we've done at AGU. So every year we do it's kind of state of the Arctic report card. And one year, and the last couple of years, one of the scientists said, 10 years ago, the Arctic was whispering. Now it's screaming. It's a really good soundbite. It really sums everything up in that report very succinctly and accurately. Here's another quote from a press release that was done not too long ago about ocean acidification affecting coral reefs in the Florida Keys. And the scientist said, this is one more reason why we need to get serious about reducing carbon dioxide emissions sooner rather than later. It's all about that take-home message and what does all of this really mean for people. Another thing to keep in mind is consider the words that you use. You really want to avoid using jargon and scientific terminology. You want to keep it as accessible as possible. So use simple terms. Like I said, keep it about to the level of a high schooler. If you have to use a technical term, just make sure that you define it. Sorry about that. Avoid any acronyms or shorthand unless you absolutely must, and then you can define it. And avoid abbreviations, especially for chemical formulas. So write out carbon dioxide. Don't say CO2. And if anyone has any questions about these, we can provide you with more examples. So you want to really keep your slides simple and visually appealing. You want some text, but not too much, and you want a lot of visuals. So if you have photos, if you have videos, if you have audio recordings, if you have illustrations, graphics, please absolutely include them and lead with them. They are wonderful, wonderful tools to use. Because we have print reporters coming to our meeting. We also have multimedia reporters. We have TV reporters. We have radio reporters. They will want all of that great multimedia. And it's totally okay and encouraged to bring props as well. This photo on this slide is from last year. We did a press conference on the September 2017 earthquakes in Mexico. And this scientist from USGS brought in these props showing how buildings shake when they're built in different ways during earthquakes. So this is a wonderful visual aid that really helped drive his point home. When you're making your slides, use a simple color scheme, stick with black and white. And we actually have a slide template that you all can use. It's not mandatory, you don't have to use it, but you can, and we will provide that to you after this webinar is over. If you do have to use a graph or a chart, we try to say avoid using graphs or charts from your paper or from your research. But if you really feel that you want to include one, please make sure that it's simple and easy to read, and I will show you some examples in just a minute. Make sure your slides don't get too cluttered. And just for logistical purposes, the format is widescreen 16:9 aspect ratio. So here are some examples of good images to include. So anything of you in the field, doing your research, collecting data, all of those are wonderful. Anything that will illustrate your research and how it was done. Video and multimedia, like I said, are fabulous. Here's an example of a video of some scientists lighting some fire on top of the ice when methane was coming out of it. So anything like that is wonderful. Please definitely include it. If you want to use an infographic, that would be great too. Here's an example of a really simple one showing different layers of the atmosphere and where certain things are in terms of the space station, satellites, and things like that. So this is a really good thing to include as well. If you want to use an illustration, that's okay, and it can be very simple. Here's an illustration of the Curiosity rover in Gale Crater. This is not sophisticated at all, but it gets the point across. That's all it needs to do. It does not have to be very fancy or technical. If you want to use an infographic, that's great too. Here's an example of one from NASA about Cassini that was included a couple of years ago. So if you want to use a graph, here's an example of a good one to use. You want it to be simple, and pretty much you want just the reporters to take away one piece of information from the graph. So here is an example of sea ice extent in Antarctica over time. It's easy to understand. The point that the scientists wanted the reporters to see was that there was a big drop in 2016. So it's very easy to understand from this graph. Remember, you only have 5 minutes with them, and they don't have time to sit there and read and analyze a very complicated chart or graph. On the contrary, here's one that is way too complicated. You do not want to include anything like this. This is actually something that was included in a press conference several years ago, and we please tell you to avoid doing this. This is far too complicated for someone to grasp and understand the nuances of in just 5 minutes. Here's an example of a chart that is also too complicated. This was also something someone used in a press conference a few years ago. This, for the sake of reporters, is gibberish. It's just too complicated. There's too much information here to try to understand in a couple of minutes. Here's just an example of what a good slide would look like. You have a title, you have some bullet points, text, and you have an image of some kind. Just keep it simple, don't overthink it. And you can obviously speak to, complement your slides, and any more detailed information that reporters want, they will ask for. Keep your color scheme really simple. Like I said, stick to black and white. Try to resist the urge to do what this person did here, which is have a photo up as the background of your slides. This is a beautiful photo, but it's so busy that it just makes it hard to pick out the necessary information that the reporters need from your story. And it also means you have to change the text, colors, and things like that. Really just keep it simple with black and white. And finally, please resist the urge to collage. This is an actual slide someone showed several years ago with about 30 glaciers on it. This is totally useless. No one can pick out even what's going on here. Use one photo on a slide, maybe two. Don't go any further than that. Please resist the urge to collage. And so now a note about finding things that are copyright free. So like I said, everything that you use in your presentation must be shareable. We're going to make available to reporters, so they must be able to use it in their stories. That means you have to use a photo or an image that doesn't have copyright. So it either has to be in the public domain or has a Creative Commons license, which means that it's able to be shared for non-commercial purposes. So when you're looking for images, you want to look for one of these two icons. And I'll show you how to do that. So there's a couple different ways. The first thing to know is that anything that is produced by a government agency is in the public domain and is fair to use. So anything from NASA, NOAA, USGS, for example, you can look up photos from them in Wikimedia Commons, or you can look in Creative Commons as well. These are good places to start. A lot of the agencies also have Flickr accounts, and they have a great repository of photos there. NASA, NOAA, NASA has actually a bunch of Flickr accounts with great photos to use. So anything on there is in the public domain and free to use. And a lot of research institutions, probably the ones that you work at, also have Flickr accounts. And you should be able to use anything on there as well. Just check with your press officers if you're unclear about something, about their permissions for any reason. If you want to search for something on Google, a good way to do that is just go. So for example, here I am looking for a photo of Jupiter. So I would just type in Jupiter in the Google image search. If you go over to the top right-hand side and where it says Tools, a little menu will pop up and that says Usage Rights. And so go down, and what you want to do is select Labeled for Reuse with Modification. That means that you are able to, the photo has rights that you can reuse it and modify it as needed. And that will filter all your results to only show ones that you are able to use for your presentation. And if anyone has any questions about photos, and copyright is a really complicated issue when it comes to images. So if there's anything you're unsure about, please feel free to email us or call us and we'll help you figure it out. And so if you need help with your presentation, obviously we here at AGU can help you, and we'll probably look through your slides ahead of time, but also your own institution's press officers are there and they can help you. So if you don't know who they are, just go to your institution's website, look for anything that says press, news, media, communications, and click on that. So here's an example from Woods Hole, and the Woods Hole website on the very top corner, it says press room. If you click on that, it has contact information for the media relations team there. So you can reach out to them if you have some questions about your presentation or about what you can use, images or video, anything like that. And of course, anything that you take photos or videos yourself are obviously free to use as well. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Nancy, and she's going to talk about what happens on the day of.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so now that you've prepared your presentation, you're ready to go, what's going to happen at the actual press conference or workshop or media availability on the day of? So just to go over where you're going to go and when. So this year, we're in DC, and our press conference room and the whole press area is located in the Marriott Marquis, which is directly across the street, across 9th Street from the Walter E. Washington Convention Center. There's also a tunnel that connects the convention center to the Marriott, so you don't even have to go outside. And there are sessions happening in the Marriott, so when you're on site, you should be pretty familiar with the venue. But we're on level M3, so you have to go down to that's down 3 levels from the ground, and the room is called Shaw LeDroit Park. And you'll see pretty much the whole level M3 is all the press stuff. So and there'll be a sign that says press conference room. So it shouldn't be too hard to find, but you can find one of us always in the press room. There'll be signs there, ask for us, and people will know where to find us. And you should have all our cell phone numbers and all that. But plan to arrive 15 minutes before your press event, before your press conference, just to make sure you're there. There might be another press conference going on when you get there. That's okay. No problem coming in, standing in the back. And maybe even, if you wanted to stop by earlier in the week, just to see how if you had a press conference, on a Wednesday, wanted to come by on Monday, you had some free time just to see what a press conference is like. By all means, they're open to all members, all attendees at the meeting. So come by, see what it's like, or invite your colleagues. So that's where to go and when. So come 15 minutes early to the press conference room. And this is a floor plan, just showing the whole press area. So that's where the press conference room is located. You come down the escalators, take a right, and then take a left. And we'll be around there. We'll either be in there or in the press room, which is down the hall, where it's in the Chinatown room. And like I said, you should have all our contact information if you need to get in touch with us or have any trouble finding it. But it should all be pretty easy to find. So what to bring with you. So I think Lauren mentioned we're going to be sending around with the slides. When we send around the slides, we'll send around the this PowerPoint presentation. We'll also send around a link where you can upload your presentations. It's like a shared kind of like a Dropbox, but it's like the Microsoft version where you'll be able to upload your presentation. So we'll have it there. We'll have it all loaded for you and ready to go. But also bring them on a flash drive just in case something goes wrong, or the night before, you made some changes. Just so you have the most up-to-date stuff. It's good habit to bring it on a flash drive as well. Also, if you have any images or videos that you want to share with the press, separate from if you have really great images and video that are in your presentation, it's also a good idea to have them separately as images and videos the press can easily use, rather than having to go into the presentation and copy and paste it. So it's good to bring it on those. And we can upload all this. I think someone asked, we have what's called a virtual press room on our Fall Meeting Media website. And it's basically just a portal where we can upload any documents, any images, any videos that anyone can, the reporters can easily access. So, and we'll do that all for you. If you have any papers or press releases, we'll put that all on the media website for you. We'll also have a tech in the room. So we do have a tech who's helping us. All the press conferences, all the press events are web streamed so that reporters who aren't at the meeting can participate as well. So we have someone who's helping us with that. They'll help you make sure the presentation is loading up. They'll make sure all the microphones are working. So we have someone there. So, to reduce all the stress, all the technical stress. So don't worry about all that. And we will get everything up and share it with the reporters. So you don't have to worry about that either. Other thing to bring though, remember to bring some business cards with your contact information. If it doesn't have your cell phone number on it, and it might be a good idea to write that on the back, just so while you're at the meeting, reporters can get in touch with you if they have any questions following your presentation. So what to wear? I mean, basically what you're already kind of wearing to the conference, just business casual. Do think though that you might be, like I said, they'll all be web streamed, so everyone will be on camera, but there might be TV reporters who might take you out, after the presentation and want a kind of a one-on-one, interview. So think about just something that might look okay on TV. It's just something solid, muted, nothing too busy, just simple accessories. It's great if your institution or your organization, has a shirt with a logo or a sweater with a logo. Those are always nice to wear. So just, normal kind of business casual stuff. So what to expect? So once we get started? So you'll go up, like I said, we have press conferences going all day long, pretty much Monday through Thursday. So it's busy, and so we have to get everyone in and out pretty quickly. So each presentation, each press conference or workshop or media availability lasts 45 minutes. So, and they start at the top of the hour and last for 45 minutes. What will happen is, and then we have 15 minutes to kind of turn over everything. We'll get you up on the podium, the whole panel, and then one of us will introduce the panel, just very briefly, your name and your institution, your affiliation, and then we'll just open it up to you to go through your presentation. And you'll go down the row. If you have most panels, maybe it's 4 or 5 people, 3 or 4 people, everyone is going to speak for just 5 to 7 minutes. You will be the driver of your slides, which will all be loaded onto the computer in that's at the presentation at the podium. You'll go through your slides, talk for about 5 to 7 minutes. Like I said, go down the line, go through the panel, should last about 20 minutes. And then we'd like to leave plenty of time for Q&A with the reporters who are in the room or who reporters are on the web stream. So we like to leave about 25 minutes. So the press conference, that's for the press conference or a press workshop, which are pretty similar in terms of the format. They'll last 45 minutes or until there are no more questions. Media availability, which I know some of you are participating in, is a little bit different. In the sense that there may not be a full presentation by each panelist. Someone may get up and give maybe a short introduction to what's being discussed, or it may just be simple, and then open it up for Q&A, or it may just simply be Q&A with reporters in the room. So no presentation there, but still same time limit, 45 minutes or until there are no more questions. And myself and Lauren and Liza, we moderate all the questions in the room. We call on the reporters in the room. We ask them to say their name and their affiliation. You're welcome to have your colleagues come and watch, but only reporters can ask questions during the Q&A. So just to keep that in mind. And talking about questions. Be ready for questions. Think about what questions you might get ahead of time. If there's something that's happening in the news that's related to your research, think about how you might answer that. Just think about common questions you might get, or maybe you've gotten before, and prepare those answers. Take your time. It's okay to think about your answer for a second. And I'll get to this a little bit more, but if you don't know the answer, don't say no comment. We know that has a certain connotation. It's okay to say, I'm not really sure, but I can get back to you, or I'll follow up with you later, and get that reporter's contact information. Or, I'm not the expert in that area, but I can refer you my colleague. I can get you in touch with my colleague who's here at the meeting to help you answer that question. So those are just things to keep in mind during the Q&A. And of course, follow up. I mean, similarly, be around. Reporters might have questions after the press conference is over. They'll likely come up to you and ask you questions right there on the podium or as you're packing up your bag. Then they will maybe follow up over email or with a phone call, or ask you to come back maybe later in the week to meet them in the press room and have a longer conversation. So be prepared for that. Like we said, it's a very short presentation due to the time constraints, but they may have lots more questions. So be prepared that they're going to want to follow up. So like I went over before, if you don't know the answer, think about, just kind of pivoting to what you can say. So, if something's beyond your area of expertise or something you're not comfortable talking about, that's okay. You can say it's beyond my area of expertise, but what I can tell you is, and go back to those main messages that Lauren was talking about, and that take-home message. And of course, put folks in touch with your colleagues, or offer to get back to the reporter so you can go look up, maybe it's a number that you don't have the exact, figure on that you want to get back to them with. That's totally fine. And just to, I guess just to go over kind of what it means to be on the record. So we tell all our press conference participants that it's best just to assume from the minute that you step into our press conference room until your last kind of contact with reporters, everything is on the record. So it's just a good rule of thumb. When you're on the panel and you say something, all of that is on the record. Like I said, we're web streaming it. You can't really say something and then say it was off the record, and it's just really not a good idea in a press conference or anything like that to kind of go off the record. So everything is on the record, and that means that it can be attributed to you. So be mindful of that. Think about what you want to say, and just be mindful that anything you say can be, used by that reporter in his story, his or her story. I mean, that goes for if you're corresponding with a reporter after the fact, via email or on the talking on a phone or whatever it is. It can be it's on the record, and so just be mindful of what you're saying. And this is just briefly what off the record means, and on background and not for attribution. We're not going to get really deep into that, but just so you have a sense of what that is. But like we said, just consider everything on the record. So how many journalists will come? Like Lauren said, we're expecting a record number of journalists this year just because of our location in DC. But also, we're one of the, this is kind of the meeting that for reporters who cover Earth and space science, this is, the meeting of the year. So, you may have a full packed room, or it may, but, there may be other sessions going on, how busy the meeting is, and there may only be a few reporters, but don't let that encourage you or discourage you. If there's only a few reporters in the room, one of those reporters could be from the AP and could write a story that could wind up in, newspapers everywhere, or there could be someone on the web stream who writes for one of the wire services. Or it could be a packed room and, something else happened that day and they all are writing about something else. So, and I guess what we also say is some reporters come and they come to the press conferences and they come to the meeting and they come to the press conferences and they get story ideas for the whole year. So they may not even use it that day, but, maybe in a month from now, they might call you up and, they're writing about something similar and want to talk to you. This is your chance to really, serve as an expert in your area, and they'll keep that in mind, when they're looking for experts in the future. So just keep that in mind about how many journalists will be in the room during your event. So that kind of covers the whole, the press conference itself, or the press event itself. So what comes next? Like I said, a lot of times after the press conference, some reporters will come up to you afterwards and want to get a little one-on-one, ask some follow-up questions, maybe questions they didn't want to ask in front of everyone. So be ready for that. I mean, plan to maybe stick around a little bit longer, or if you have to run, be prepared with your business card to give them, be available, by cell phone or email throughout the rest of the meeting. Be ready that there are TV reporters, there are lots of radio reporters who come. They may pull you aside so they can actually record something usable for their purposes. And of course, like I said, yeah, bring your contact information and just be prepared that they might reach out after the press conference. So what's next? Now that we've had this talk, we're about a week and a half from the meeting or so. Think about making your presentation for your press conference or for your workshop, and send your slides. If you're working with your press officer, organizing your press conference, or like Lauren said, if you have a press officer at your university or institution that you're working with, send it to them, have them take a look at it, or you can send it to one of us. I know for some of the press conferences that we're organizing, we're having some run-throughs. I'm sure some other folks are having run-throughs as well. And we will send a link where you can upload your presentation once it is all finalized. We will be sending those. And I guess the most important thing is wait to speak to reporters. So if even one reporter, we always say this, if even one reporter reports about the news ahead of time, writes a story, next week before the press conference, no one else is going to cover it. By that point, it's old news. So we really encourage you to wait to speak to reporters. If a reporter does contact you, send them our way. I mean, there are times when we can kind of negotiate with the reporters so that, they can get what they need, but don't break the story ahead of the press conference. Most press conferences are scheduled before the actual session happens, but if that's not the case, if your session is first and then your press conference might be later in the day or the next day, we just recommend that you tell reporters, hey, I'm doing a press conference tomorrow, why don't you come to that, and we can chat more after that. So yeah, but of course, reach out if you have any questions about your presentation or your slides, or dealing with reporters. Please reach out to us. I know you have all of our probably emails, but we're also always at news@agu.org. And also we have a program here called Sharing Science, which we are a part of as well, that helps scientists to communicate their science. And so there's a lot on there. I think you should have all received already this link to our past webinars that we've done that are just like this. We have a little PDF guide that also goes through all of this stuff. They also have stuff on their website just about, generally speaking, with reporters, a little bit more about honing your messages and things like that. And of course, if you have some time, we encourage you to watch some previous press conferences on AGU's YouTube page. If you just go to the American Geophysical Union on YouTube and go to playlists, you'll find 2017 fall meeting press conferences, and they are all there. So maybe look for one that might be similar to your area that you'll be, your area of research, and just see what it's like and get a sense of it. And this is us. So if you have any questions or need any help, feel free to stop by. Like we said, the press room. We'll be kind of floating between the press room and the press conference room, which is all in that long hallway on level M3. But if you need us, someone can come find us. And like I said, if you have some time earlier in the week and your press conference is until later in the week, feel free to stop by and say hi, or just see where the press conference room is, so you know where to go, or stop by to look in on a press conference. Early in the week, Monday and Tuesday, we have press conferences, I think, from 9 to 5 every single day, except for that short break during lunch. So feel free to come by, say hi, whatever you need, we are available. So I think that's about it. And now I guess we will take questions. If you want to type your questions in the question box or in the chat box, I think the question box is easier. We will be happy to answer any of your questions. I think we also already answered a couple about, we will be sharing the PowerPoint slides. We will send it around with this webinar recording. And we will make all your presentations available to reporters through our virtual press room.
Yes.
Like we said, bring all that stuff on a flash drive, especially if you have video or audio or images that you want to you think a reporter might want to use. Take it out of your presentation as well, so we have that and we can upload it separately. And we'll also be sharing the recordings with them, so they have that afterwards. So some reporters are as you guys are going to trying to cover every different session, so they can come and watch it later. Okay. Okay, we have one question. Susan Webb. I'm participating in a media availability event, and I'm not really sure how to prepare. I gather there is no talk to give, but what would be typically needed? I think you're participating in the media availability following the diversity and inclusion plenary. I guess in that case, I guess it would be good to just think of, there won't be any presentation, you're right. So basically, I think reporters would come to the plenary, maybe hear the panel, and then have questions to follow up there. It's a time for them to ask questions. I guess in that case, just think of some questions that you might get. I know this is, in terms of the one that you're participating in the panel, there's a lot of stuff around, there's a lot of news around this, there's a lot of news stories around this. Maybe read what's been in the news lately. Those might be questions that you might get, or questions that have come up. Maybe it would be a good idea too. I mean, if when you're talking to your panelist after the panel, when you guys are just even walking over to the press conference, maybe think about some questions that you all might get. I'm happy to also, if we want, I could email you separately to maybe brainstorm some questions. But I would just think about some questions that you all might get, or what you might represent on the panel in terms of a specific area of science or a specific location that you might have a specific expertise in, that you might want to answer some questions there. Yeah. Do we absolutely need business cards? I don't have any. That's okay. I guess if you don't, I wouldn't go print any business cards. But just obviously have your contact information, so you can in this day and age, I don't even know if people even use business cards that much, but they do. But just have it so you could easily send it to someone on a text. You know what I mean?
And put your email or your contact information in your slides. That's always a really good thing to do as well. So a reporter can just quickly jot it down or take a photo of it.
Yeah, or even if you want to just print it on a couple pieces of paper that you can get out.
That's fine too.
Or write it by hand. It's just so that they have something that they can either take a picture of. If you just want to write it once, and they can just snap a picture. Everyone has their phone.
Yeah.
So no, don't worry about printing any. That's not necessary. What is the software hardware combo involved in the press conference? The same as for the scientific presentation. Oh, that's a good question. So we have the capability. So what we will have in the press conference room is a PC. That's what's hooked up to the at the podium for the slides. But so we recommend putting it in PowerPoint because that's really the easiest way to do that. However, if we do have some cases where people come in and they say, I really want to use my Mac, it has all my stuff on it, that we have the capability to do that. You could plug in your own computer if you have a video you really want to show that's on your computer, but bring your dongle with you in any case. I think everyone should know what that is. That's how to hook it up to the projector. So it goes through the projection system. So please be sure to bring your dongle. But yeah, we recommend doing it in PowerPoint. Like I said, we have a tech there on site, and they should be able to help you with whatever you need, though. They're very good, the techs. So also, if you do have a video or you're nervous about incompatibility, please just stop by earlier in the week or in the day, and we can just hook it up and make sure it works. Like lunchtime is a good time to stop by. Maybe shoot us an email and just let us know if you'll be coming by so we can be there.
Give us an email or call us, and we can just pop in there and try to play it really quick, make sure everything works just fine.
Yeah, but I would recommend PowerPoint. And we're going to send around, if we haven't already, AGU has some PowerPoint slides that if you want to use them, you don't have to, but they have
it's just a template.
Yeah. Will the computer have internet access? Yes, it will be. It will be hardwired with internet access. So if you have something that you want to play from the internet, that will not be a problem. It will also have sound and audio, so that's not a problem. Yes. Okay. I'm presenting data that has been collected by a ton of collaborators, agencies, institutions. The start of a typical topic acknowledges all the essential contributions of collaborators. Can we expect the press to acknowledge that aspect or somehow encourage that? So in general, I would say it's, press don't include that in their stories. It's just the way it is. I mean, they just, like Lauren says, they really want to get to what is the news and why it matters. There's no harm in including it. I just don't want to promise that they in general, they're just not going to use that information. However, when you're talking about one aspect of your research, and if there is something comes up that, that wasn't the aspect, maybe you're not the expert in a particular aspect that you want to get your collaborators, maybe they can answer the question better, by all means, give that information to the reporters. We also say, we encourage, if you have folks that are experts that are available to be at the press conference, not on the podium, not on the panel, but in the room during the Q&A, and they are really a good expert in like some little aspect that you really don't feel, that you're the expert in, by all means, have them come by. We can introduce them during the Q&A, and they can be there on hand to answer questions. And that's really the best way to kind of get, if you do have collaborators, kind of acknowledge that. But the press are not going to list 50 collaborators in a story. They just don't have the room.
There's no acknowledgement section in a news story, unfortunately, and that's just the way it is. So that's just something you'll have to, make peace with.
Yeah.
It's certainly fine to include it, but there's no guarantee that the reporters will include that.
Does it have Wi-Fi for the audience? Yes, it does. We have our own press Wi-Fi, so which should hopefully be working very well. So it's a dedicated network just for our rooms. So the press will have Wi-Fi if they need to get on and see something that you want them to see, or they might be tweeting about things or taking pictures. Pictures, tweeting, all that is allowed in our press conferences. So that might be happening as well. Are there any other questions? No.
I think that might be it.
Well, thank you again so much for participating in a press conference. I mean, we couldn't obviously do this without you all, and with just being so willing to help us out and communicate your research to the press. Like Lauren said, everyone usually really enjoys this experience and has a good time, and really it's really gratifying to hopefully see your research in the Washington Post or wherever, or Gizmodo or Scientific American or wherever it may be. So Thank you so much.
And of course, like if anything else comes up between now and the meeting, obviously, we will send you all emails with all this information written out, and we'll give you our cell phone numbers, all of our emails. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us if there's anything else that comes up. No question is too small or too stupid. It's really okay. And we really look forward to seeing you all at the meeting, and we hope you enjoy Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and one more thing, just to let you know, we are sending out the list of press conferences to the press this coming Monday, the 3rd.
Oh, yeah.
So you may get contacted, next week. But just to let you know, that's when we send out the list. It's basically, here's what we're doing, here's the title, and I think we read probably those little blurbs by you.
A little teaser.
Yeah, you may have seen. They're kind of vague, but it's just to entice the press. So just be aware that that's kind of why it's out there.
Yeah, and some reporters do some pre-reporting before the meeting. They may contact you just to get a better idea of what you're presenting, and that's okay. We just don't want you to give away the news ahead of time. Yeah.
So definitely reach out to us if you are contacted by reporters. But,
yes. Yeah.
Thanks everyone. And that's about it.
Yeah, we'll see you in DC. Thanks a lot.